Hi, Derek Evans here for the Real Estate Radio Network, another host training video lesson. Today, we're going to be talking about opening a new segment. So anytime you're opening a new segment, that's because you've just come from break. So I want to start there. You actually want to start thinking about the next segment during the break from the end of the previous segment. So in other words, you finish segment one, you go to break. That break is an opportunity for you to decide and set up how you're going to frame the second segment. Now, of course, the content is already provided, but the way that you enter it is completely up to you and your guests. So, for example, if you were talking about something in the first segment that was very interesting and you want to continue that discussion, or your guest says, hey, I had something really good to say about that, but I didn't get a chance to get in because you guys were having such a good conversation. Okay, we're going to make sure we get to that. But there's a couple of key points that you want to do. First of all, make sure you know what content you're going to during that break. Spend those 3 or 4 or 5 minutes figuring out, all right, here's the things we want to make sure we hit. There's a couple things you have to do when you come back from break. When you bring the show back, you have to stamp it. Even though there's a rejoiner that's going to say you're listening to the Real Estate Radio Network, that's okay. You have to stamp it again and say, hey, this is Derek Evans, Real Estate Radio Network. Welcome back, ESPN 1700. You have to get that in there. So you go ahead and do that, and that's going to be in your script and in the format of the show for you. But you also have to make sure that you go ahead and do a little back selling. You have to recap what you've already talked about, because any new listener joining in, anyone who's just joining right at that moment, isn't going to know what you've said before. So you have to not only back sell, which means that you're telling them why. You're almost back teasing. You're teasing why they should have listened to the first segment. And if they missed it, they missed a lot of good information. But the good news is there's more to come. So stick around. And that's kind of the feel that you need to create. So when you back sell, you have to recap and say, okay, in case you just missed it, you missed some great information. We talked about this. We gave you secrets on this. We told you everything they didn't want you to know about this, so you can help your family with that. And this is the way that you back sell. Now we're going to do this. Okay, now we're going to tell you about this, this, and this. So you back sell it first, and then you front sell the information that you're going to talk about during that segment, which is what you spent the break deciding to do. Now, this is something we teach you in detail with the format of the show, so it'll be a little bit easier when you're looking at that. But it's important to understand the concept of always making sure that you have everyone in the right position and then the right mind frame for the segments. You have to stamp it, okay? You have to back sell it a little bit. You have to make sure you're always doing what's the most interesting. But when you open the segment, it's continuing the conversation. We don't want it to be a new show, and that's really important. Sometimes new hosts get the feeling that they have to make every segment its own little show, but that's not true. We want it to clearly be a continuation of what's going on. In fact, if we're doing it right, each week the show that is that we're doing this week is a continuation of the show from last week, like we never stopped. That's ideal. But that's part of what we teach you. That's part of what we do with the format of the show, so that there can be congruency. It's like the party never stops and everyone's invited. You contact us at this information and you can get copies of the show. You can get all the information we're talking about. And that's the messaging that we're trying to create with the community. So when you're opening a new segment, make sure you spend the break, okay, figuring out exactly what you want to talk about. If there's anything that you want to recap or that should be elaborated on, make sure you decide that during the break. Do your back sell and your front sell of the segment, and then let the conversation roll, because that's what's the most interesting, and that's what it's all about. This is Derek Evans for the Real Estate Radio Network, Host Training Video Library. We'll see you again soon.